Good afternoon, coming to you from the Skyline Studios, high above beautiful Cape Coral here in sunny Southwest Florida. We've got music, sunshine, and some great conversation coming up with our guest, Lee Birchfield. I'm Ken Ullman, and this is the Endless Summer Podcast. So here at the Endless Summer Podcast, we talk about music, the bar scene, and other local happenings in the Cape Coral, Fort Myers area. But mostly, we want to tell the stories of the singers, the songwriters, and the musicians that make Southwest Florida a great place to hear live music and some very talented people. Now, before we get into our conversation with our guest, Lee Birchfield, a big shout out to our sponsor, Rum Runners. Located right here in Cape Harbor at the southern tip of Cape Coral, they've got great waterfront views, live music 7 days a week, great drinks, a friendly staff, and best of all, awesome food. They're open every day from 12 noon, and if you stop in, I promise you will not be disappointed. All right, so living in Southwest Florida is kind of like living in an endless summer, and with that comes great music, which brings me to today's guest, the very talented Mr. Lee Birchfield.
What a pleasure to be here with you, Ken.
Thank you, sir. I'm happy to have you, Lee. I met Lee a couple of months ago over at Rum Runners. He's not only a great singer and musician, but he's got a really interesting story. But before we get into that, always got to ask you the first question, are you a native Floridian?
You know, Ken, I'm not, but I feel like one because everybody's been so nice here.
That's awesome.
I've been here 7 years. I'm from Seattle, Washington originally.
Okay.
And I came down here 7 years ago to play some music specifically.
And what made you pick this area?
I just knew, that the tourists come here, and I knew it would be a great place in the winter season, the season as they call it.
Right, the season, yeah.
And then summer, for the first few years I was here, I would go north and play the season up there.
Okay.
And, I've been lucky. I've met some great people, and now I'm here year-round, full-time.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And what got you started in music in the first place? Family or?
My father was the biggest inspiration to me. And though he wasn't a musician, he loved Elvis Presley.
Okay.
And I grew up listening to all the old Elvis records, and he couldn't sing or play an instrument, but he had a great ear. And
Gotcha.
he knew what was good and what was bad. And the big thing with him was he wanted me to learn these songs and stuff. And, I wasn't really big into Elvis when I was a kid, way past my generation.
Right.
And, but I grew a love for the music, and we would sit down and he would say, all right, sing this part. And he would rewind a cassette tape of Elvis singing 50 times.
I know what a cassette is.
and he would say, get this part right, and then we'll move on. And he was my biggest coach, my biggest inspiration. Wow. I would have never dreamed of getting into music if it wasn't for him.
It wasn't for your dad. That's really, my parents were awesome influences on me as well. Did they just buy you a guitar one day, or because he plays really well, and how'd that happen?
When I was 13 years old, my dad bought me a Les Paul copy. It was an Epiphone.
That's what I had.
Epiphone
Les Paul.
And I banged around on that. I wasn't really good at it. It took me several years to really get it down to where I was comfortable with it.
But then you started playing guitar, but you were already singing even at a young age, it sounds like, right?
Yeah, I was. My dad had me in the bars at 13, 14 years old, and I'd go entertain, and on the breaks, you'd have to go stand outside. And then when it was time for the music to come back
you'd have to go back in.
You'd
That's
go back
right.
in. Yeah,
because you're not old enough to be in there.
I wasn't old enough to hang out and drink yet,
So for those of you that are learning just today, so Lee has done Elvis tribute shows. And how did you get started? You said your dad had the Elvis records and cassettes playing. Is that how you got pretty much started on it? And in other words, how did you work your way into that gig, if you will?
Well, my dad started shopping around different places and stuff, and he actually landed me a job in 1999 opening for the Coasters.
Oh, yeah.
And,
the Yakety Yak guys that we talked about.
Charlie Brown, yes. Poison Ivy. They had a bunch of hits in the 50s. And so he got me that gig, and for 3 months I'd open for them in Las Vegas at the Sahara Casbar Lounge. And then we would go to Laughlin and do the Edgewater Casino down there, and it was just a blast. And it was crazy working. Those guys are musical legends.
Yeah, oh yeah. Probably some good experience, obviously. Playing with them.
Absolutely, because I've always been around top-notch players.
Yeah.
And that's really where you pick it up from.
And that helps a lot, obviously.
Absolutely.
What about as far as your influences? I mean, obviously Elvis would be an influence, but your other music that you play, are you more of a country influence, more from country or rock or pop or anything particular?
Man, I love all kinds of music. It took me a couple years to graduate out of the Elvis thing and explore other music.
Sure.
And I think my first stop was probably the Beatles. And then I got into Eric Clapton and Jimi Hendrix and all those old 60s guitar legends.
Yep. Speaking of guitars, so in some of the photos we were looking at earlier, I noticed some Fender Strats. You did mention the Epiphone Les Paul. And I know you, like I said, I noticed some Fender Strats, but you now have a custom-made guitar.
About 6 months ago, I ordered a custom Emerald guitar from Ireland. And it took them 4 months to build. And I did every spec on the guitar. I customized the inlays on the fretboard.
Wow.
It's all carbon fiber, which is a good thing because in Florida, the humidity and stuff, it takes its toll on wood guitars here. And
Oh my goodness, yeah.
And so to go out with a really expensive Martin or a Gibson or something, it's just kind of foolish here. I always used little cheap $200-$300 wood guitars when I was playing them. And now that I've got this carbon, I mean, I could throw it in the swimming pool, take it out, dry it off, and it worked perfect.
And it'll play.
Yeah.
And where did you find the company?
Just watching YouTube videos and researching on the internet. I wanted a carbon fiber guitar.
Okay.
But I didn't know what company that I wanted to build it for me yet. And I found these guys, and it's been an incredible experience playing it.
I heard it, and I know we're going to be lucky enough to hear it ourselves. What about a side? One of my friends said to me at one point in time that Florida is a side hustle state. That that everybody has a side hustle. Now, music may be their primary thing, but they also sometimes. What's your situation? Is your music your full time?
Yeah, music's my only source of income, and I make investments, and just like everybody else that works a job, I got insurance and a 401k plan.
Yeah. And you working somewhere now? Or you're saying the 401k and all the thing is part of the music?
It's all based on
the music business.
Yeah,
I got you. Oh, that's great. I mean, I don't know if that many musicians are that resourceful.
Hey, there's good times and there's bad times.
Yes, there is. Yeah, there is good times and bad times.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. And when you play out, I'm guessing if you're doing a couple of Elvis songs, you've got to get a great reaction, right? And I know that's the kind of stuff that makes me happy.
I really do, and it's surprising because you would think that it was just the older generation that loves Elvis, but he's really timeless, and a lot of the young kids. I mean, people from 5 years old to 100 years old. I mean, he really spans the entire age group.
Great music is great music and will always be that way. I think 100 years from now, you'll still be listening to some of the Elvis songs, Beatles songs, and the ones that really broke ground in the musical world. So actually, speaking of music, you're going to play us a song?
Absolutely, yeah.
And we're going to get to hear the custom-made guitar on top of that.
Yeah, this is actually the Emerald guitar from Ireland.
Tell us what you're going to play.
Well, I'm going to do something safe today. I'm going to do Can't Help Falling in Love by Elvis Presley, of course.
Awesome. So, Mr. Lee Birchfield.
Wise men sing, only fools rush in. Scoot a little closer, Ken.
What?
But I can't help falling in love with you. Like a river flows surely to the sea, darling, so it goes. Some things I'm meant to be.
Wow.
Take my hand, take my whole life too, but I can't help falling in love with you. There you go, buddy.
Wow. Wow. That was awesome. I mean, that was just brings back a lot of memories for me too, because my mom and dad listen to Elvis, and boy, hearing that song. Wow. All right. I'll compose myself. And so you can catch Lee at Rum Runners a couple times a month, right?
Yeah, I'm there twice a month at Rum Runners, and I've got regular gigs on Fort Myers Beach, Wahoo Willie's every Friday night. There's Matanzas every Tuesday night. I'm doing about 25 gigs a month on average.
Wow. So you're a busy man. And your schedule is posted on Facebook, you said?
Yeah, I post it, Lee Birchfield.
Okay.
I post it regularly. Most times I do about weekly.
And, the podcast, of course, that we're working on right now will be posted on the Endless Summer Podcast YouTube channel. So don't forget to go to that page. And we have an Endless Summer Podcast Facebook channel, which will also be up there. So, wow, this has been amazing. I'll tell you, we'll see you in a couple weeks with another amazing musical guest. But in the meantime, huge thanks to Lee
I really
Birchfield.
think it's great what you're doing, Ken.
Thank
I'm a
you.
big fan of the show.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm just so happy that I'm getting to meet so many talented people, making friends, and just really, really.
And you've had a bunch of them on already.
Yeah.
Stephen Clark was here.
Stephen Clark
I've watched
was
a couple episodes. It's good stuff, man.
It's so much fun, and I'm meeting so many great people, so I'm very, very excited about it. So from the Skyline Studios high above Cape Coral, enjoy your endless summer here in Southwest Florida. I'm Ken Ullman, this is Lee Birchfield, and this is the Endless Summer Podcast.